Okay, big time, big time, big time. This is when the wars start, okay? It's important to understand that after the Indian Removal Act, all the violence stopped. After the Indians were gone out there, and the Indian Removal Act was more than just this one time. Indians were all moved across the Mississippi, and from 1836 on, there is no Indian violence in America. For the first time since Jamestown was founded, there's no Indian white violence. And the reason is simple. They're separated. They're separated, okay? It's almost like Andrew Jackson took the United States and said, okay, east of the Mississippi, Workingwood High School. West, you're the 9th grade campus. Put them over there, we don't have to fool with you, okay? Now, after the Civil War, that's going to change. The one thing that's going to change this and make the violence start again is the Homestead Act. I don't think I have this up here, okay? It's the Homestead Act. When Abraham Lincoln passes the Homestead Act, remember, he's trying to satisfy his free soil contention by giving them what they want. They're called free soilers because they want free soil. Lincoln's going to give that to them in the Homestead Act. Go out there, live 5 years and farm that land, it's yours. So you have this massive movement of people, even former slaves called exodusters coming from the South, that are moving into the West. And when they move into the West, they come into contact with all those Indians. And then the whole thing starts over again, okay? So when you look at this time period right here, there are a couple of things that are important to remember. Always remember this, when the United States is fighting Indians, to the Indians, it's a cultural war. It's an attack on the way we live. It's an attack on our life, okay? That's why that's a big deal, okay? When you go into the plains, the guys, these are nomadic Indians. And I think it would probably help you. And this is one reason why, and I know this has helped kids before, especially from Kingwood, because we have to talk about this. When you talk about the Plains Indians, make some type of notation that they're nomadic. And they've been nomadic for 30,000 years. These are the ones that came down through that ice corridor chasing the woolly mammoth. They stayed in the plains because they chased their food. They chased the buffalo north and south, and they never left. That was their culture. They lived their lives on horseback after the Spanish introduced them. Southeastern Indians, on the other hand, planted the Three Sisters. Okay? So the Plains Indians, when you take their food away, you destroy them because they didn't know how to do anything else. They didn't know how to farm. That's why in the Dawes Act, they tried real hard to make them farmers. So the decimation of the buffalo is going to be the biggest weapon that the United States will use in defeating the Plains Indians. Not Hotchkiss cannons or 50 caliber cannons and things like that, not guns, not starvation, not disease, that. Because guys, it's a self-perpetuating weapon. You go out there and you kill the food source off and you sit back and wait for the Indians to die. Okay? All you have to do is kill a bunch of animals. And that's pretty much what happened here. They were killed off because a lot of buffalo were being used to feed the workers on the Intercontinental Railroad, the Transcontinental Railroad. Okay? So just don't forget the cultural aspects of these wars. Okay? When you kill the buffalo, you kill the Indian, but not directly. Okay? All right. We're going to talk about a few things that happened here. Red Cloud's War. Okay? And again, you don't really need to know the specifics of it, but just to kind of set the context. This is when white settlers that were using the Oregon Trail to go to Oregon and California, when they discovered gold in Bozeman, Montana, okay, they started cutting short from the Oregon Trail up through to Bozeman on something called the Bozeman Trail. This shortcut cut right through the middle of the Powder River country, which was Sioux Holy Land, okay? And when whites started going there, Red Cloud attacked them, okay? So Red Cloud's War is going to be the Sioux Indians against settlers who were trespassing on Indian holy ground. That's the biggest thing, okay? Whites are doing this because the lure of gold is too strong. It's Indians fighting whites trespassing on holy ground, okay? The Treaty of Fort Laramie has been on the AP exam before. About 2 years ago it was on there. Doesn't mean it'll be there again. But guys, if it's on there as a document for multiple choice, or if it's on there as something in a DBQ, then the next thing is it'll show up as something on a short answer. So you may see it, okay? This we need to remember. First of all, the big thing, it ends Red Cloud's War, okay? It ends the war. It was a victory for the Indians. The Indians got what they wanted. Okay, it is important to know both sides of this without going into terrible, terrible detail of it. Okay, first of all, what the Indians wanted was to keep white people out of the Powder River Country, and especially out of the Black Hills. We want them out of the Black Hills of South, because that's where our gods live. So what the Indians got was a promise from the U.S. government to keep whites out of the Black Hills and the Powder River Country. That's what the Indians got. That's why this is considered a victory for the Indians. They got what they wanted. Okay. The U.S. government got what it wanted. Okay. For all practical purposes, the big thing you know is these Indians agreed to assimilation. They agreed to be assimilated. The government's going to send them, it's going to send farmers and engineers and teachers, and they're going to all learn how to be farmers. The government's going to give them something unheard of, agricultural subsidies, to help them learn to be farmers, something they don't know how to do because they're nomadic. So both sides get something out of the Treaty of Fort Laramie. Okay? The Indians get their holy ground free of white demons. Okay? And the U.S. government gets Indians trying to assimilate. That's really, really important. And the reason is this. If you agree to assimilation, you're agreeing also to go to the reservation. Okay? So that's what's going on here. So when you sign the Treaty of Fort Laramie, Americans are rejoicing because we solved the problem. Okay? The Indians will go to the reservation. They'll do just like they did, like the Spanish did with the mission system. They'll learn how to be farmers. They'll learn to speak English. They'll become Christians. Okay? And then they'll become productive members of society. All we have to do is keep a bunch of jerks out of the Powder River Country. So this was a positive sign. People were celebrating this. Okay? Anybody remember what happened?
Found gold.
They found gold. And not only did they find gold, who found gold? Custer. Custer's the guy that upset everything. They put Custer in the Black Hills as punishment. They put him in his part of the 7th Cavalry. And when he went into the Black Hills, after he'd been ordered not to, he found gold. And guys, once you say that 4-letter word, okay, people lose their minds. Okay? Then you can't keep the whites out of the Powder River Country. Okay? And that's what's going to cause the trouble. Okay? Custer, when the whites start going back into the Powder River Country and they are violating the Treaty of Fort Laramie, they start to leave the reservations. Okay? The U.S. Army is going to go get them and make them come back, including Custer. Okay? And you know the story. Custer's going to find a bunch of them at Little Bighorn and get the living snot kicked out of himself. 275 of U.S. troopers versus over 5,000 Indians. Those are not good odds. When it comes to this time period, it's really important because you're looking, it's almost breathtaking. The reason is you see the height of the success of Native Americans in defending themselves. They won the Red Cloud War. They got the treaty they wanted. They preserved their tradition by keeping the Powder River Country and Black Hills away from white people. And then Custer and the gold thing came up, so the Indians leave. And even then, the Indians will win. Guys, in Native American today, this is celebrated as a holiday, the defeat of George Custer. Because Custer was the young, upcoming, he's a very young Douglas MacArthur. Okay? He wants to be president. He wants to make a big thing. And his ego has eaten him up so much, he believes he can take 275 soldiers and defeat 5,000. Okay? So this is a major thing. Also, never lose sight of the year. This is the bicentennial. America's 100 years, the centennial. America's 100 years old. And by the time the eastern United States finds out about it, it's the 4th of July. On America's birthday, most Americans found out that the Golden Boy had been slaughtered in Little Bighorn. Timing is everything. Okay? So this is what's important about it. This is going to turn America against Native Americans. It's kind of like the Tet Offensive of the Indian Wars. It's going to change public opinion. Instead of reformers feeling sorry for these people who all they're trying to do is maintain their culture, all of a sudden now they're bloodthirsty savages. And they sat there and slaughtered. And of course, when details of it came out, it really got bad. A lot of people back east did not know what happened when whites and Indians fought, and they didn't understand the atrocities. They didn't understand that when Indians killed white people, they mutilated them, okay? White people did the same thing. So when the word came out and everything, because it was the newspapers, there's a tremendous bias here, all of America's fury turned towards Indians. They forced the U.S. government to make a final move. The one thing that Little Bighorn caused was the United States government is all in now. Solve your problem, okay? And that's why Little Bighorn is called the beginning of the end. Once the United States Army puts its full attention to getting rid of Indians, they will get rid of Indians. There are other Indians out there. Chief Joseph is one of them. He was in the West. He had vacated the reservation. And guys, people like Chief Joseph and Sitting Bull, Geronimo, like this, other Indians looked at them as icons of their culture. If the Arapaho are not going to surrender, I'm not going to surrender. If Crazy Horse has not surrendered, I won't surrender. Chief Joseph is chasing, the army chasing him, I'm not going to surrender. But when they surrender, it sets a precedent. No matter how proud you are, when you look at your people and women and children are starving to death, it's better to save their lives and surrender than to decimate the population. That's why Chief Joseph surrendered. And when he did, other Indian groups started to surrender. Okay? Reformers. There weren't many reformers totally concerned about Native Americans, not like they were about suffrage or temperance. Helen Hunt Jackson wrote a book called A Century of Dishonor. It was a book that supposedly revealed all the outrages the United States government had committed against Native Americans. It's not a good book. Okay, it's a hard book to read. And the reason is, she did in this book the same thing that Harriet Beecher Stowe did in Uncle Tom's Cabin. She made it sensationalized, okay? It was true that there were broken trees and things, but some of the stuff she put in there was put in there just to sell books. But it was propaganda, and it was effective, okay? It didn't win America's heart in feeling sorry for Indians, but it did start to affect congressmen, okay? Geronimo is another Indian just like Chief Joseph. And guys, it's not important to know a lot about him or where was that everything. It's important to know that he was a leading Indian figure that once he surrendered, the fact that he surrendered caused other Indians to follow suit. Sitting Bull surrendered. He had led the Indians at Little Bighorn, Crazy Horse, Chief Joseph Geronimo. When these people surrendered, it sent a message across the plains, hey, you're not less of a man or less of an Indian if you surrender. You've got to man up and admit the fact out that the Indian world is over. We've got to learn to live in their world. Okay, Big E, real biggie, real biggie. When these Indians surrender, you got them on the reservations. Okay, you've got a lot of Indians coming off the plains, coming into the reservations. Reservations are growing and growing and growing like this. When you get them there, the big question is, what do you do with them? A congressman in Dawes says, okay, we have an opportunity here. We have an opportunity to replicate what the Spanish did with the mission system, what the Puritans did with the praying towns. We have an opportunity for a massive assimilation to take all these people and turn them into white people. In other words, we have an opportunity to kill the Indian and save the man. That's a quote you may see, okay? So the Dawes Severalty Act is going to be a massive attempt to assimilate Indians on the reservations. That's important. You've got them on the reservations. They're there by choice, okay? Now you're going to assimilate them. When you think about the Dawes Act, the intention was this was a well-intentioned thing. It was designed to help these people survive in a white world. It had a little bit of